One of my favorite things lately has been interacting with all of the other like-minded small business owners inside of my free online community. If you want access to free resources, tools, trainings, tons of great sales advice, and just general encouragement for your business journey, then click the link in the show notes and join myself and other small business owners inside the She Sells Differently Facebook group today.
When you move into this world of creating and becoming an entrepreneur and an authorpreneur, it's about creating value and visibility and always being authentic. Visibility can sometimes become vanity, and what we really are looking for in terms of being driven by our mission and vision is to always bring authenticity to our audience.
Hi, friends. Welcome to She Sells Differently, the show for aspiring women entrepreneurs looking to overcome the fear of selling and grow thriving businesses from a place of authenticity and confidence. I'm Andy Hart, and it wasn't all that long ago that I was a sales executive for a Fortune 500 company. But I knew in my heart that I was called to use my gifts for something more, something different. That's exactly why I created the She Sells Differently podcast. Each episode is going to deliver you business strategies, tools, and mindset shifts to help set you and your brand apart from our culture's expectations. It's time to elevate your sales and build a profitable, sustainable business you're proud of. One built on integrity, grace, and humility. It's time to learn how to sell differently. Welcome to the She Sells Differently podcast. I am so excited that you are here today, and I am blessed to have a guest with me today, Kae Wagner with the Bold Authors Network. And I am going to just give a really quick overview of Kae's background, and then I'm going to let her introduce herself. Kae is the founder and president of North Star Marketing and the Bold Authors Network. And as an entrepreneur, expert marketer, promoter, and best-selling and award-winning author, she has turned her focus to the author and publishing world to help authors promote their books and back-end programs through the Bold Authors Network. She's helping, and I love this word, she's helping authorpreneurs solve the big problems the indie publishing world is facing, dealing with issues of falling off the Amazon cliff to AI's impact on the industry. Selling books does require different strategies these days, and Kae is leading the charge, and I'm so excited to learn from her today. So welcome, Kae.
Thank you. Thank you, Andy. It is such a pleasure to be here with you today. I
Yes.
love the subject that we're going to be covering. Well, let's just say we're going to cover a lot of subjects today, I believe. I think
Yes.
we have a lot to talk about, Andy.
Yes, we were talking before we started recording, and I shared with Kae that I have always had just that dream and desire to write a book. So this is especially interesting for me today. And I know that there are a ton of my listeners too that probably have that dream that they may have never even shared. It's just kind of been in the back of their mind. And so we're really going to dive into that today. If you've ever just had the desire to write a book, but maybe you don't know where to start, don't know how that can be implemented into your business, and this is the episode for you. So, Kae, I'm going to turn it over to you and just let you maybe share a little bit more about your background, how you started writing, and all of the fun stuff.
Yes. So I've been writing ever since I was a kid. I grew up on a dairy farm. I'm number 8 out of 10. So totally different background from most people that I know. But I always had a creative spirit. And so I was writing, and I look back on my journals from that time, those angsty teenage years where you write that, oh my God, heartfelt poetry. And,
Right.
my life is going to be over and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, But very early on, I got really positive feedback from, on my writing. And I was published when I was in high school. I won awards early on. And so it was always present in my life in one form or another. And then after I founded a marketing agency, North Star Marketing, I published a couple books. I self-published them before KDP. So early 2000s, I think 2005 was when I published the first one. And it was a book on marketing, the power principles of marketing. And that was followed by the CEO's little black book on branding. Marketing and branding, as you know, are like sizzle spots in the universe.
Yes.
You talk about marketing, you talk about branding, you talk about selling. Everybody is like, whew, what can we do? What can we learn? What do we need to know? What's the latest? And so from those books, and they were targeted towards CEOs, VPs, people who are putting the strategy together for a company in terms of marketing and branding. And I got on the speaking circuit nationally to speak in front of CEO groups. So after I would speak to these CEO groups, a couple weeks later, months later, I'd get a phone call from Executive Vice President of Marketing. He'd say, my CEO saw your speech last month, and said that I should call you and we should work with you. I'm like, okay, let's do this. So I learned that a book is a business card. A book is more than a business card in that it is your proven process to achieve a certain level of success. It gives your methodologies. It gives you the authority and credibility to stand on a stage and say, I know what I'm doing. And to immediately have that gravitas that people tend to be drawn to. And that launched us into an agency that had, corporate clients that were national, regional. We had a really great business. And over time, through a series of a variety of events, I decided several years ago that I had this story percolating in me. Now, everybody, like you said, Andy, everybody has a story. And particularly entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs have really, really good stories that are often come out of heartfelt, deep, passionate desires, not just to make money, but to provide a solution that makes people's lives easier, that solves a problem, and often can come with stories of sometimes of tragedy, of times when they felt like they weren't going to make it, times of really, they were hard pressed, and a lot of deep, deep emotions involved in being an entrepreneur, as you know, and as I know, because we've been on the entrepreneur's journey. But I had this story that was percolating in me from when I was a kid. And I kind of, would think about it and then I'd put it on the back burner because after all, I was a nonfiction writer, not a fiction writer, right? So fiction was not my purview. But I started studying the craft and I decided that if I was going to publish this story, now was the time. And that was 2 years ago. And so I set out to write the first book of fiction and is titled Saturday Night at the Trailer Park. And that book turned into a series of 4 books.
Wow.
So I started out with what I thought was a book, one story, and the story just continued on and on and on. And I learned so much about publishing because I was working on Amazon in a different way than I was with my nonfiction books. And I started because I published the whole series. All 4 books were published in 2024. So it was like release, new release, new release.
Wow.
And I amassed a lot of, thousands of loyal followers fairly quickly because of the book. And the book also has a theme, but we can talk about themed books later. But anyway, so this is the one that launched the series. Saturday Night at the Trailer Park. There's a whole lot of story about the inspiration behind that. I don't know if you want to go into that at this time. Andy, you tell me where you want to go next.
What I would love to hear, so you really transitioned from nonfiction to fiction. And we talked a little bit about, and I want to get into this in a minute, but we talked about really utilizing books to help sell and grow your business.
Right.
From a fiction standpoint, you just released 4 books, one right after the other. How did you market and promote those books? You just amassed a loyal following so quickly. What do you attribute that to?
So I became a bold promoter of my books.
Mhm.
I carry books with me everywhere I go. This morning, I was down at my personal trainer and we got started talking. I was telling him about the story of the next series. And he kind of has a Marine background. And in this next series, there's this boot camp scene. And so I was asking him questions about it. And he's like, "Are you kidding me? You're asking me these questions. What's going on?" And I'm like, "Well, I have a new series I'm working on." And he's like, "Okay." He didn't know I was an author. And so I said, "Do you know about my first series?" And he's like, "I didn't know you were an author." And I'm like, "Well, let me go out in the car. I have books in my car." So I gave him a book. Now, I have to tell you, Andy, that there is something about giving a person a physical book that is truly a gift.
Mm.
There's something about a physical book, the perceived value of receiving a physical book is very high, especially when you get it from the author, right?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like, yeah. And so the way that I was able to get loyal followers was I gave out a lot of books and I talked nonstop about the series. Now, fiction, nonfiction, 2 different stories about how I marketed them. Fiction, obviously, is more personal.
Mhm.
It's really the difference between fiction is B2C, consumer,
Mhm.
nonfiction is B2B. You're
Right.
selling to businesses, you're selling to owners or entrepreneurs or whoever your market is. So it's some different tactics, some different messaging. I would say that the messaging is more different than anything else. But I was able to get a lot of interest and a lot of reviews by being very bold and talking to everyone. And this is what I would like for anyone, who's listening or watching to understand that to become a bold promoter, whether it's you're an entrepreneur selling products or you're an authorpreneur selling books, when you go through the mindset shift to become a bold author, you will see opportunities that you never saw before, and you will create opportunities that you never imagined before. Because suddenly, when you transform from that, quiet kid in the corner to a bold, proud promoter, you are like, wow, it's like somebody took the veil off my eyes and I can see all of this stuff now. It is amazing. And no longer do you have that anxiety or that fear of talking about your books. 75% of all fiction authors are introverts. And
Wow.
so, yeah, isn't that amazing?
That's a very interesting stat.
Yeah. So think about that all of these authors who have put their heart and soul and their passion into writing, and now because they're introverts, they're afraid, anxious about promoting their book, about talking about it.
Mhm.
They just want it to miraculously sell and become a bestseller. And we know how sales go, right,
Right.
Andy? I know you're the expert in the room on sales. And so we know that sales need to happen. The actual purchase of books, there's a lead up to it.
Mhm.
And so there is a ton of things that you need to do to make that lead up happen faster. And it's not about alpha sales tactics. It's completely different than that. And I know that, so She Sells Differently, right? That's the title of your podcast. And what I wrote down when I first saw that title was She Thinks Differently.
I love that. Yes.
And so you sell differently because you think differently. And proud promoters, whether they're entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs, think differently about promoting and selling. And so they sell differently.
Can we dig into that just a little bit? We talk about mindset shifts, and I talk about this with my clients, with, here on the podcast a lot about having that mindset and really, one of the biggest challenges, especially us as women, not trying to put all of us in one box, but we have this fear of selling our products, whether it is books or it's candles, me owning a candle company, or it's art that we create or whatever our product is. We have this fear. And I think our culture often, paints the word sales in a very, very negative light.
Right.
And in reality, we're all selling every day. And so you talked about you became a bold promoter of your books, and that mindset shift really opened up a world of possibilities, and you really started to see things differently. How did you really initiate, or how did you shift your mindset to become bolder in talking about your books?
I have it encapsulated in the Bold Authors Network in 3 V's. And those V's are vision is the first one, voice is the second, and the third is visibility. Now, I also added a bonus V to that, and that is value. So the first one is vision. And this is what I love about entrepreneurs. And I know that you see this in their hearts too, that they do have a vision. And
Yes.
that vision is not just about the product, but it's often about the solution that they provide or the experience that they create or the care of the end result, the product itself. It reminds me of what happens on Shark Tank when you see people come in and they have worked so hard on this idea and they put their life savings, they've mortgaged their house. I mean, they have done extreme things, right, to make this product work. And then the sharks, God love them, but they can be very sharky.
That's a good word. I'm going to start using that. Sharky.
Especially Mr. Wonderful, who wants to take
Yes.
you out behind the barn and shoot your idea.
I know.
I know he has a heart in there somewhere, though.
Like he always says, like the cockroach you are. That's what he.
I know. He's so mean. But we know that entrepreneurs have this love and this passion and that they have a why. And, so for all of us, we have a why of, providing for our families, for creating a product that's successful, for getting a solution out into the world. But there's also a deeper why, a deeper vision that we have that I think is really important for us to connect to. And I think a lot of people don't think about it or talk about it. And that vision has to do with the real meaning of your life. And what is it that you are most connected to? And what is it that you most value? What are you willing to go to the absolute wall for? And when you get really clear about that, then you have a mission. And when you have a mission, then all those fears start to fade away bit by bit because you are no longer trapped by the fear of what other people think about you.
Yes.
The voice in the back of your head that says, oh my God, you're going to offend somebody, or you're talking too much about yourself and your product, and nobody wants to hear about that anymore, or whatever that little, crazy town voice tells you. You're like, it doesn't matter, because crazy mind, just settle in, because I've got a mission here and I'm making a commitment to this mission, and it's going to happen. And so you go through a mindset shift of getting really brutally honest with yourself. And you might need people to help you, people that you trust, people like you, Andy, if you're, a coach for these people, to get really, really clear about what they're willing to go to the wall for. What do they stand for? And once you get clear about that, you go through a transformation. And that transformation is like, okay, I know I'm still an introvert, which I am. And the stats about introverts are high, but I'm going to choose some extroverting behavior right now in order to get this mission accomplished. I'm going to choose to do some different things that will take me out of my comfort zone, out of my zip code. And I'm going to see some opportunities and create opportunities that I never saw before, that I would not have done when I was the shy kid in the corner, because I've got this mission, I've got this vision to do. So we get that, dialed in, and that's in your mindset. That is something that connects your mind and your heart, and they become focused on that mission. And then, so we have that. That's the first V of vision. And then there's voice. And so voice is not only your physical voice, your speaking, but it is how your presence is felt. Your presence, whether you are on Zoom or in a room, can you command a room? Can you dig in and tap into that mission and vision so that it is so present that people feel the energy that you bring? And mission and vision taps the energy level up. And so your presence becomes bigger, your energy becomes more profound, and it also becomes more magnetic. And so people are drawn to you. And you become not someone that you're not, but you become an expansion of yourself. You become a bigger person, and you can feel it. Like you can feel it in your body. And you get to the place where you know, and that you can't get knocked off of what your mission and vision is. And so your voice also includes your point of view. What's your point of view in your specific industry, or in your specific situation or scenario, or your audience, your tribe, your people? So like for you, Andy, she sells differently that is like a stake in the ground if I've ever heard of one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And you don't come by that lightly, I'm sure.
Right.
Right. So you've had years of, you told me, of being in the corporate world, in the sales world, where it's really geared often towards alpha sales tactics. And your presence, your coming to it is different. And so we come to terms with what that stake is in the ground. What are we willing to go to the wall, go to the mat for? And that's really our voice. And our voice includes like all of the things like speaking, being on summits, on the stage, creating opportunities for me, where I was in front of CEO groups and bringing my books with me, always bringing my books with me.
Of course. Yes.
And for those of you who are not authors, so my books are the products that I sell. They're my assets. You have products that you can always take with you. Like in your candle store, do you have a little candle you can give away?
Yes.
Do you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So create that thing, that tangible physical thing that you can always give to somebody. Now, not every author can afford to give a book away, so you can create something that's smaller token of it, but there's importance and value in the tangibility of what you're going to give away. So there are a lot of things in the voice category that we include, but the important thing is to know that your presence is the important part. Your presence and your voice.
Let me ask a quick question here. You said there's an importance and a value in the tangibility of what you give away. And so by that, you were meaning you talked about the physical book that you
Right.
hand to someone or the physical candle.
Yes.
So you're really shifting from here's my freebie, sign up for my email list type giveaway to really putting something in someone's hands, right?
Right. Now, the giveaway still has value. I would
Right.
not diminish that, but the greater value is when you, the creator, you, the author, you, the producer, give someone something. There is the tangible thing itself. There's also the fact that then they have it and they see it again, creates a memory. It creates additional brand awareness. Other people see it. They may give it to someone else. In my case, my book gets passed around. When I give it to somebody, I figure from what I've heard on average, 2 or 3 additional people will read that book. So there's that additional follow-on of visibility when you give something that's tangible. There's also a perceived value in tangibility that we don't get in the intangible. And so when people sell a service, they have to almost like productize it in some
Mm-hmm.
way. And
Yeah.
yeah, and so that just has so much value. Number one, a gift. There's the law, the human law of nature that is reciprocity is when someone gives you something, ergo you should give them something back. And so you set up the give and ye shall receive, law of nature that
Mm-hmm.
works like gravity. You can count on it that it will happen. It may not come back to you in quite the same way as you imagine, but it will come back to you. Then the third B is visibility. And visibility is being everywhere. Now, when you first get started, you cannot be everywhere. So you have to be where your audience is. And being where your audience is with your thing to give away and your mission driving you is making you unstoppable, bold, proud promoter, because you will talk to anyone, everyone, about what it is that you are producing, creating. Being a creator is, in my humble opinion, is a sacred position.
Yes.
And when we are creators, we are kind of creators in his image. And that holds a whole ton of meaning for me.
Me too. Yes. I love that. I often talk about here on this podcast too that, one of the reasons that I enjoy creating is because I am created in the image of God and He is the ultimate creator. And so
Exactly.
He gave us that joy in creating, whether it is, and the gift to be able to create, whether it's authoring a book or making beautiful candles or art or
Yeah.
whatever that is. So vision, voice, and visibility. I love that. If you're watching this instead of listening to the podcast, I'm furiously writing notes over here because it's so valuable. And I often think that we really don't take time to dig into that deeper why
Mhm.
and that mission. And so for you, when was that kind of light bulb moment in your entrepreneurial journey of really digging into your deeper why? And how did that kind of come about for you?
I told you I grew up on a dairy farm, right? Yeah. So I remember being about 12 or 13 when I made a decision, a decision that my career, whatever it was that I ended up doing in life, was not going to be labor. It was going to be pursuits of the intellectual sort, right? And, I was already writing at that time. I didn't really set out to be a writer. I actually wanted to be a film director.
Wow. That's
Yeah, I did.
interesting. I love that.
And so when I wrote Saturday Night at the Trailer Park, I actually wrote it in scenes because it is my goal that it become a movie or a streaming series. I won't direct it, but I'll have the joy of watching it become a movie. So I had that moment, and that really guided me then, So I went to college, I got a degree in communication, studied radio, TV, and film, got a job in television. I was a producer, I went into marketing. Everything that caught my eye or pulled me in was about creating, being in the creative field. And then I started a marketing agency. But I also had this, intellectual curiosity. So I wasn't just about making things or, creating in terms of advertising. I was also very interested in strategy, in which direction and how, and what's the business model, and, things that were not just the advertising agency things. And so I remember before I started North Star Marketing, I was like, how am I going to make this agency not an advertising agency, but we deliver advertising, but it's not just an advertising agency. And so that's when I started digging into and really studying very deeply the principles of marketing. And then I wrote the Power Principles of Marketing, which really encapsulated what our position was. But I remember being on the treadmill and I'm thinking about this. Okay, so we're not an advertising agency, we're a marketing agency, and we're going to be different. So maybe I should have taken your idea and said she markets differently. And then that would have encapsulated it more clearly. But I remember being on the treadmill and I was watching TV because I always had a television there. And there was a truck that was on the TV that said North Star Trucking. And I'm like, oh, you know what? We are going to be like the North Star, the star in the sky that the mariners set their direction. And so for me, that was suddenly the perfect metaphor for what marketing is, which is setting the direction, right?
Yeah.
So that's how that came about.
I love that. I love that. So we've talked a little bit about your fiction works, and we will link those if any of our listeners want to purchase those, we will link those in the show notes.
Thank you.
Let's talk about some of your nonfiction works because I love how you have really created just opportunities to grow your business. You talked about you would have VPs call you and say, my COO heard you and now wants to hire you and work with you. And so it really catapulted a bigger business for you and opportunities. Can you talk a little bit more about being intentional with your nonfiction books,
Mm-hmm.
and how you utilize those in your business?
Right. So with nonfiction, primarily you are doing two things. One thing is you are solving a specific problem. And nonfiction is really beautiful. How to solve X problem. X problem, I have a solution, a unique, proven solution, right? The second thing that you can use nonfiction for very effectively as an entrepreneur is to tell your story, which brings in the emotion behind how you developed your solution to the problem. Regardless of the product, regardless of whether it's books or candles, rugs, furniture, cars, anything, we as human consumers love stories. And so we want to know what the story is behind whatever the product is. We want to know that you, as the entrepreneur, care about us as the person who buys your product, your solution, but not just that you care about us, but that you share with us, like, how did you come up with this? And who are you? And what does this mean to you? What is success writ large for you as an entrepreneur who went through blood, sweat, and tears, the ups and the downs that you inevitably go through as an entrepreneur or as an authorpreneur? And so authors who decide that one book will become part of their business or will drive a business become entrepreneurs. And in that decision, I didn't just write a book. I wrote a book for a reason. And that reason was to help drive my entrepreneurial business. In that knowledge and in that decision, then you become a bolder promoter because now you have a tool to push your ideas. You have a tool to create a wider picture perception of the value of what's been put into it. So when we look at a candle business, we think that there's a beautiful product there and it creates a beautiful experience for the user. It's a gift, often a gift, I'm sure. And so it conveys emotion, it carries emotion. There's a gifting spirit, there's gratitude, there's a whole bunch of stuff packed into that candle, right?
Right.
And that comes from the creator, from you, the entrepreneur. And so for entrepreneurs who are listening, who want to think about, okay, what does this mean for selling differently, right? That thought process, that mindset then infuses everything that you do. It infuses how you train your people, how you train your salespeople, because they're going to think and sell differently as well. But how the book fits into that is that it becomes your story in a tangible form that then can take on a life of its own because that book gets passed around and other people read it. And so when you write a book that's a nonfiction book related to your life, your entrepreneurial endeavors, and your product, you do well to serve the reader by giving the solution to the problem, whatever that was, but also to tell your heartfelt, passionate story. And that begins to connect with the spirit in the other person as well. And that can make a big difference.
That's amazing. I am really excited. So I've already joined the Bold Authors Network.
Oh, fantastic.
And I venture to guess, after listening to our conversation, there are so many listeners that are thinking that dream of writing a book. If they maybe that's, a new dream or that's kind of bubbling up even more. And so tell us a little bit more about the Bold Authors Network, what you help, the services that you help with and how they can join.
Yes. So joining is very easy. You just go to boldauthorsnetwork.com and you're going to fill out a form, just a basic, name, email, that kind of thing. And then every Monday we have a promo hour, and that's from 4 to 5 Eastern. And the goal of promo hour is to connect authors. And we invite anyone who's thinking about a book, come into the author world now. The best time to start thinking about promoting your book is before you write your book, right? I mean, that's the classic product construction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Go to make a product, but you think about how you're going to sell it before you make it. The thing about authors is they don't always think about their books as products. And so they write it and then they expect it to sell. And so, we need to work on that kind of process, right? But what we do in the Bold Authors Network, my greater vision is to grow a network where authors can connect, collaborate, and create even greater things beyond their book. So we have promo hour. I'm going to start a monthly Q&A where people can just come in, ask all kinds of questions, but really begin to have a transformation for authors to become bold promoters, for that mindset shift that will then drive everything else. And my goal is that no author is left behind, that everyone can become a bold promoter. And what I love about what you do, Andy, is in working with entrepreneurs, thinking about creating a book really gets them focused on, okay, what is my story? what do I want to share about this product or this service that I've created and care so passionately about? And so we have a boot camp and we have Beyond the Book, which is really where you start to think about what is that follow-on work that happens after the book, which is really interesting to me. Now, being in sales, you know about perceived value, right?
Yes.
So let me just tell you a little bit of this construct of perceived value in the book world. So in the book world, we have Kindle Unlimited, where you get books for free. We have digital books where you'll pay $4.99 to $9.99, maybe $14.99. We have paperback books like this one, where you might pay $15, $20, $25, and then they're hardcover. So that's all perceived value that we have all agreed upon is what books are worth, right? Then, if I take this theme, which the theme of this series is forgiveness and redemption, and I take that theme and the content, and this is fiction, let alone nonfiction, which is much easier. I take that fiction, that theme, and I create a course, an online course. Now, what's the perceived value of an online course? It's higher than a book, right?
Right.
Could be 25, 50, 100, $1,000 in a course. Now I take that content, I repackage it into a consulting and coaching program. And then the perceived value of that might be thousands of dollars. So it's not just a book. It's like, what is in this book that has more value? And it's easier to find in nonfiction because you have the problem solution. So
Right.
problem solution, everybody who writes a nonfiction book should automatically be thinking about writing a course, an online course, and then doing some consulting, some speaking, and there are additional things that we teach people as well. In fiction, it's a little harder because it's not a problem solution. It's an experience. It's entertainment. But what about if you wrote a book knowing that your story could be developed into a game and people that are gamers could play the game? What's the difference in the perceived value of buying a game than a book? It's
Yeah.
pretty huge. Think about fantasy writers, historical fiction writers. They have worlds. They've been building worlds, and those worlds could be, gamer material
Yeah.
or movies, right? I mean,
Yeah.
wouldn't I love the perceived value of Saturday Night at the Trailer Park being Saturday Night at the Trailer Park movie? The perceived value of that, bring it on.
I'm excited to read that because you just hinted at the theme was forgiveness and redemption,
Right.
which sounds like an amazing story
Mhm.
that you have crafted. So, and you said it is 4 books that you
4
released
books, right?
last
Yes.
year. So, I'm excited to dive in there too.
And the books are on Amazon for those who want to find the series. Saturday Night at the Trailer Park is the first book.
Yeah, and we will link all the links in the show notes so
Okay, great.
everyone can just have easy access to those and to the Bold Authors Network too. So,
Yes, yes. I'm so happy you joined.
yeah. Well, like I said, I've just had that dream, and I think a lot of times people, and this is probably a good question for you too, because for me, it's about time,
Right.
to sit down and also not knowing where to start. And I think that the Bold Authors Network is a great place to start
It
to
is.
learn.
Mhm.
So, what would you say to someone that has never written before, brand new, maybe someone like me that has that dream, but maybe feels like I don't really have the time? What's your best advice?
Right. So I love that question. That is such a great question. So here is what I would recommend that you do. I would recommend that whether you think you're actually going to write a book or not, regardless of that, is I would start a practice of doing either daily musings or weekly musings. So conversations with yourself. And I would recommend that you do them in dictation form. I would recommend that what I do for my daily musings is I will grab my phone and I will literally open up an email. I will hit the microphone and I will just dictate into my email, and then I'll send myself the email. It's already transcribed, right? Easy peasy. So I have it on record. You can go back and clean it up if you want to, but by establishing that practice, by asking yourself, what am I feeling today about where my business is? What am I thinking about? Oh, where was my business last year this time? And what is the growth that I've made? And where has that come from? Where am I going? What do I really care about? These are conversations with yourself. You can have these conversations with Chat GPT if you want to, because that'll be a Chatty G combo. And you'll get some guidance too, which
I'm
is a good
sure.
thing. Yeah. But I would say just to start peeling back the onion and revealing to yourself those deep yearnings, those deep feelings, those deep meanings that are in your life. And you will start to see that the truth begins to bubble up. Then from there, so do that for a while, do that for maybe 6 months. Then you can start with a program where you can be guided into specific structure. Because when you write a nonfiction book, you want to write to a certain structure. And so we can provide that for people as well. And then from there, you have the option of writing a first draft and then having editors, clean everything up for you, or you can have someone write it for you. Once you've gone through a lot of that work and you have a lot of that, you're going to get pretty clear in your mind about, what's the story that I really want to share? And what's the story that means the most, to my audience? And then from there, buckle up because you have a world of opportunities ahead of you.
That's such a great process that you laid out and easy to implement.
Yes, very easy.
Yeah.
And if you think in visuals, which I think, Andy, you and I talked about thinking in visuals, for some people, it's really just not thinking about a story so much as it is about painting a picture. I don't mean physically painting a picture, although you certainly could, but just like thinking in visuals. Yeah, like I remember when I was doing this and this and this, and then that happened. And visuals will often trigger some things in your mind to take you, into a deeper place, into a deeper space of more meaning.
That's so helpful. Any last words of wisdom or anything else that you want to share?
Yes, I would say to your viewers, to your listeners, to your entrepreneurs, to those who are selling differently, to remember that in whatever you're doing as a maker, as a creator, and specifically if you become an author, is that when you move into this world of creating and becoming an entrepreneur and an authorpreneur, it's about creating value and visibility and always being authentic. Visibility can sometimes become vanity, and what we really are looking for in terms of being driven by our mission and vision is to always bring authenticity to our audience. And I think reading Saturday Night at the Trailer Park, knowing that that book was written for meaning, not just for entertainment, but for meaning, to share my commitment to the theme of forgiveness and redemption, will give you an idea of how to begin to translate that in your own life, into your own story, into your own book, into your own world.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And that's something that is such a value, an important part of my mission, to always be authentic and lean into who God created you to be. And you said that earlier that, when you were talking about your voice, and that when you really lean into that and people can feel your energy, you become more magnetic. And I wrote that you mentioned you become an expansion of yourself, not someone different, but an expansion of yourself. And I thought that that was so well said, because we never want to become something that we're not.
Right.
I think God gave us good gifts and made us who we are for a reason.
Right.
I think you articulated that so well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing all of your wisdom. I think all of my listeners are going to find this so valuable as I did. And so I'm just so grateful for your time.
I will see you in promo hour.
Yes.
I'm
Sounds
so
great.
excited that you joined, and I hope to see your community there as well. That would be
Yes.
wonderful.
Yes. I hope everyone listening joins the Bold Author Network, and
Yeah.
we will all of that in the show notes. And so make sure you grab that and stay tuned for next week. We will have another exciting episode of the She Sells Differently podcast. Thanks for joining.
All right, that's a wrap on today's episode of She Sells Differently. Friends, it would be a huge blessing to me if you would take 2 seconds to rate and subscribe to my podcast. New episodes drop every Wednesday. Until then, I'm cheering you on in your entrepreneurial journey. See you next time.